Las Vegas Raiders star pass rusher, Maxx Crosby, recently appeared on a podcast where he was asked some big questions about his future with the team. One of the main questions was whether he is fully committed to the Raiders or if he might consider leaving. With all the rumors and reports floating around, people were eager to hear his response. Crosby gave a thoughtful answer, explaining that two major factors are shaping his decision. The first is his contract, which still needs to be worked out. The second is the team's long-term plan. He shared that he has had conversations with the front office, ownership, head coach, and general manager about the direction of the team. Since he plays with intense energy and knows he won't be in the league forever, he wants to make sure he's part of a team that is serious about winning. He made it clear that he isn't just looking for an easy Super Bowl ring by joining a powerhouse team like the Kansas City Chiefs. Instead, he wants to win as part of a team he believes in. His goal is to help build a winning culture and leave a lasting legacy, aiming for both a Super Bowl championship and a spot in the Hall of Fame. In the end, Crosby reassured fans that he is taking things one step at a time. While there are uncertainties, his main focus remains on competing at the highest level and helping the Raiders succeed. Maxx Crosby is a true competitor. He wants to win, and more than anything, he wants to win a Super Bowl. It's not surprising that many players have looked to teams like the Chiefs or Bills in hopes of chasing a championship. Crosby isn't saying he wants to leave, but he is making it clear that if the Raiders don't commit to building a winning team, he may not be around in 4 or 5 years. That's a fair stance for a player of his caliber. One of the biggest concerns Crosby mentioned is his contract. This isn't a new issue. It's been a topic of discussion for a while now. His current deal, which runs from 2022 to 2026, has no guaranteed money left for the final 2 years, 2025 and 2026. That means the Raiders could cut or trade him without financial consequences. This is a big reason why so many reports have surfaced about his future with the team. At this point, it's clear that Crosby wants a new contract. While it's not officially public yet, there's a strong chance that his agent has already approached the Raiders front office about renegotiating his deal. And it's not just about a pay raise for the next year. Crosby likely wants a long-term commitment, with an extension that adds at least 2 or 3 more years to his contract. Considering Crosby is one of the top 5 players at his position, his current salary doesn't reflect his value. The best pass rushers in the league are making around $31 million per year, while Crosby is currently earning significantly less. Even when he first signed his contract, he could have secured a higher salary, but agreed to a deal worth about $23.5 to $24 million per year. Now, given his performance and importance to the team, he absolutely deserves a better deal with more guaranteed money. The big question is, will the Raiders step up and make the commitment to keep him? Maxx Crosby absolutely deserves a raise, and if I were Raiders owner Mark Davis, I'd make sure to take care of him. At 27, Crosby is in his prime, and locking him in for another 3 or 4 years would be a smart move. He's already under contract for this season and next, but extending his deal would ensure he remains a key part of the Raiders' future. Given the team's direction, the next 5 years could be much more successful than the last, and keeping Crosby long-term would only help build that success. Financially, it's going to be interesting. The Raiders have $108 million in cap space this year, but giving Crosby a raise would impact that. Right now, he's set to make nearly $28 million this season, but if he gets a new deal, his salary could jump closer to $32 million. That means adding around $4 to $5 million to this year's payroll and possibly another $10 million over time. His current cap hit is about $24 million, but what really matters is the guaranteed money and base salary, which is relatively low at around $22 million this year. If the Raiders want to keep him happy, they'll need to restructure his contract. There's also the possibility that Crosby could hold out if a new deal isn't worked out. While that hasn't been confirmed, he has brought up his contract multiple times now. This is at least the 3rd or 4th time he's mentioned it publicly, which suggests he's serious about getting a new deal. The Raiders need to act fast and make sure they take care of one of their most valuable players. Of course, money isn't the only issue. There's also the question of the team's plan to win. And in that regard, things are looking up. The Raiders seem to have a much stronger direction than in previous years. Hiring Tom Telesco as general manager was a solid start, and it's clear that Mark Davis is listening to smart football minds, including Tom Brady and other respected figures in the NFL. One name that keeps coming up is John Spytek, who many believe is a rising star in football management. Crosby himself has expressed optimism about the Raiders' future. In a conversation with Pro Football Talk's Chris Sims, he admitted that he once had doubts about whether the Raiders could win a championship. However, after discussions with key figures like Tom Brady, Pete Carroll, and John Spytek, he now believes the team is moving in the right direction. In his own words, "This is the most optimistic I've been." So, when it comes to both his contract and the team's future, things seem to be trending in a positive direction. If the Raiders continue on this path, they just might convince Crosby that Las Vegas is the place where he can win a Super Bowl. The Raiders are making smart moves as they build for the future. Over the past month alone, they've taken big steps in the right direction. One of the biggest decisions was bringing in John Spytek. While I wasn't thrilled about moving on from Tom Telesco, I understand the long-term vision. Spytek has the potential to be a top-tier general manager, similar to Howie Roseman. Another major change was parting ways with Antonio Pierce, Luke Getsy, and Scott Turner. In their place, the Raiders added proven winners like Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly. That's a strong leadership team, and when you pair it with the promising draft class from last year and the upcoming draft, the future looks bright. If the team continues on this path and takes care of key players like Maxx Crosby, they could be in a much better position moving forward. Some people might argue that Crosby signed a contract a few years ago and should honor it, but that's not how the NFL works anymore. Players across the league are securing raises and guaranteed money when they prove their value, and Crosby deserves the same. If other top players are getting rewarded, there's no reason why the Raiders shouldn't take care of him as well. On the defensive side, the Raiders have also made a key hire. They brought in former Saints defensive coordinator Joe Woods as their new defensive pass game coordinator under Pete Carroll. This is an interesting move because Woods has experience leading strong defenses, including multiple top 5 finishes in key categories. While his overall rankings haven't always been elite, he has consistently put together solid defensive units. For example, his teams have ranked 13th in points allowed multiple times and have even cracked the top 10. That kind of experience could be valuable for the Raiders as they look to improve defensively. Overall, it's clear that the team is making serious efforts to build a winning culture. If they continue on this path and handle key contract situations like Crosby's, the Raiders could be set up for long-term success. Joe Woods is a solid addition to the Raiders' coaching staff. While he's not coming in as the defensive coordinator, his role as the defensive pass game coordinator makes a lot of sense. Woods has a strong background in coaching defensive backs, and his expertise will be valuable in improving the Raiders' secondary. His experience aligns well with Patrick Graham's defensive philosophy, making this a smart hire. Woods has worked with defensive backs extensively throughout his career, and while I believe he was a former DB himself, what's more important is his track record as a coach. He's known for his ability to scheme effective pass defenses, and that's exactly what the Raiders need. Last season, the team had a lot of experienced coaches, but the results didn't quite translate on the field. This time around, things feel different. The Raiders are bringing in proven coaches who are here to execute a clear vision, not just familiar faces tied to Antonio Pierce. Woods will be working closely with Patrick Graham to strengthen the pass defense. While Graham will still be the primary play caller, having someone like Woods alongside him will only enhance the overall defensive strategy. Graham himself has a background in coaching defensive backs, having worked under Bill Belichick and Brian Flores in New England. But Woods brings additional experience and a fresh perspective. This combination should help take the Raiders' secondary to the next level. Overall, this is another step in the right direction for the Raiders. They've been assembling a strong coaching staff, and while I won't go into every single hire, it's clear they've put a lot of thought into building a solid foundation. A great coaching staff is crucial, especially when you're aiming for long-term stability. If Pete Carroll stays for at least 3 years, and possibly into a 4th year, the consistency in leadership could be a game changer. That stability is key because the players the Raiders draft this year will still be around in 3 or 4 seasons. Having a coaching staff that stays in place will help these young players develop within a consistent system, setting the team up for success down the road. Having quality coordinators who stay for several years is crucial for player development. If the Raiders can keep talented coaches around for 3 to 4 years, it will provide consistency and allow young players to grow. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but things are looking promising. To wrap things up, I want to share a heartwarming story that John Gruden posted on his Twitter. It's about how Maxx Crosby became a Las Vegas Raider, and it really made me smile. I hope you all enjoy this story as much as I did, and I'll see you next time with more updates. In the video, Gruden recalls how Maxx Crosby ended up with the Raiders. He jokes about his assistant, Jeff Leonardo, who was always talking about this standout player from Eastern Michigan named Maxx Crosby. At first, Gruden didn't think much of it, but Jeff was persistent, constantly bringing up Crosby's name. As the draft approached, Jeff confidently stated that Crosby was better than many of the top prospects. Despite initially focusing on other players like Clelin Ferrell, Jeff's persistence paid off. When Crosby ran an impressive 40-yard dash at the Combine, Gruden and then GM Mike Mayock took notice, and Crosby's fate as a Raider was sealed. Crosby also shares his side of the story, recalling how anxious he was during the draft. By the end of the second day, he hadn't been picked, and frustration set in. But Crosby had a strong feeling that the Raiders would call his name on day 3. Sure enough, with the 106th pick, Crosby heard Gruden's voice on the other end of the phone, letting him know he was headed to Oakland. The story highlights the behind-the-scenes decisions that shape a team. Jeff Leonardo's relentless belief in Crosby's talent helped bring one of the Raiders' most impactful players to the team. Today, Crosby is a cornerstone of the Raiders' defense, and it's clear that his journey to the NFL was driven by people who truly believed in his potential. So let's appreciate the journey that brought Maxx Crosby to the Raiders and look forward to what the future holds for this talented player. Until next time, have a great day and enjoy the inspiring story of Maxx Crosby's rise with the Raiders.